Phil Reichelt from TLG. Phil, lead us to commercial lease impacts post coronavirus 19. Change in your opinion, will we see over the coming years? What do you think is going to happen?
Yeah, thanks, Pete, and thank you for having me on the panel. And just look, welcome from the Sydney CBD ghost town. I'm looking down Pitt Street here at the moment at the coat hanger, unlike some people on the harbour, but it is a ghost town out there at the moment. There's a couple of people in town, but yeah, not as many as there used to be. But good question, Pete, and obviously pretty much, I mean, I suppose if I start with the code, and Greg's touched on it, and I suppose that's probably what we deal mostly with at the moment. Prior to the code, we were rolling out sites for business premises, both all retail, commercial, industrial, large format retail. And you know, prior to all this, there was a degree of buoyancy in the market, and sites were, you know, not as readily available, and rents were at a premium. Obviously, coming into this now with the code in each of the different states, there's different interpretations as compared to what Mr. Morrison sort of laid out right from the start. And as Greg said, each of the states are taking their own sort of their own frame of mind or their own opinion on how they want to play things out. Now, I suppose our direct experience from this and leading in post-COVID, but I mean, we're dealing with all the major landlords at the moment and across all the sectors. So whether we're lucky enough, but we've got tenants that are in the travel industry, unfortunately, and we've got other tenants that are in, you know, fruit and veg and neighbourhood fruit and beverage and whatnot, who are doing okay, and then we've got the tenants in the middle as well. So sort of we're seeing a mix of businesses that have been affected in different ways, and we're having to negotiate leases based on the code in each of the states, and in some cases outside of the code as well, because at the end of the day, these leases are on foot for all the tenants, and leading on the other side of COVID, there's still a rental obligation, and in many ways, I heard a good sum up the other day. Someone just mentioned it's just like a little hurdle that we're going through at the moment, because each of the tenants have still got obligations with the landlords, you know, through this period. It just means whilst the, you know, trading is a little bit bad, obviously we need to adjust rents accordingly to help them through. And I've been quoted a few times as using the word survive, and you know, in the case of the travel agents, that's pretty much the case. They do have to survive to get through, and they need a bit of a hand, because some of the brands out there, like your Flight Centres and some of the other household brands, which we all know, unless they do get a bit of a hand, it's going to basically, you know, reinvigorate everything on the other side. Look, we're dealing with a mix of landlords as well. It's probably just you know, our direct experience. Some are really good, some are really bad. Those that are geared are pretty, you know, up to the hilt. They're still quite aggressive. Other people who are doing okay, they're actually quite generous. And, you know, even at the start of this period, I still remember one of our landlords for one of our clients offering up 4 months rent free. This was back in April, before everything happened. And I can tell you the effect of, you know, something like that, sharing for that client. I'll never forget about that guy that did that. But we're still seeing things play out too, really, as we go through at the moment. And I suppose on the other side, Pete, if we're going to look at positives of all this, you know, there's going to be accesses to sites that, you know, we previously couldn't find in all sectors. Obviously, industrial very strong, like Greg said. Retail and office is probably going to be a different kettle of fish moving forward. But we're still seeing, you know, prime sites still, you know, it's still attracting money. It obviously depends on the circumstance. But I think access to previously unavailable sites would be a positive on the other side. And I think from a business point of view, it's going to be a move to more profitable business models as well, with a lot of retailers going online and less bricks and mortar. I mean, they're still having the bricks and mortar, and some of our most successful clients have a strong online presence, and they still have a strong retail, in some case experiential stores, which helps that online experience and the sales. And I think another positive would be on the other side of COVID, a lot of opportunities, especially in M&A, for acquiring businesses and whatnot. And needless to say, you know, the only negative, I suppose, out of this, not the only, but the property prices is going to be affected, and Greg's at the forefront of that and seeing a lot of that. But I suppose from our side, we're absolutely solely representing tenants and trying to get the best deal for tenants. Looking at, you know, assets in the CBD in Melbourne, it was in the paper a couple of days ago. Collins Lane. It was sold back in 2016 for just under 250, and at just recently sold, settles in a couple of weeks for 120. That's less than 50%. So, you know, how that plays out moving down the track, plus the effect of what Greg mentioned about a lot of these major tenants in office CBDs that are looking at downsizing and the amount of sublease space available here on the market, it's going to create a lot of opportunity, and one would suggest a lot of repricing. So, you know, part of our role is we create the competitive tension and try and get the right deals in the market for the tenants. So,
Phil, just on one point, what I said earlier, you know, how the CBD economies are really struggling, the suburban ones aren't. In those areas where those suburban areas, will effectively the value of those properties and effectively the potential rents go up on the supposition that there will be more people working from home and therefore more activity in those little suburban shopping strips and whatever?
Potentially, yes, absolutely. I mean, where there's more demand, I mean, you know, I've got fruit and veg clients who are trading up year on year. You know, they're paying their rent on the first day of the month and there's no questions asked. And I can't, subject to what Greg sees being a valuer, I can't see any reason why that, you know, prices wouldn't be going up in these metropolitan neighbourhood centres. If people are staying out of the CBD and staying at home and working from home, you know, people going down to the local coffee shop for a coffee rather than going into town to catch up with people, and these small little businesses are more thriving and creating more retail traffic and trade in these areas, which obviously has a knock-on effect to other users in the areas, which ultimately affects property prices down the track, then yes, I can see property prices going up. And in the CBD, where there's going to be a lack of drop-off in traffic, especially from retail, you know, coming up to Christmas here, a lot of people are saying it's not going to be very busy. And then into next year, still an unknown how things play back coming into the CBD. Well, it's affecting the sublease space in the office CBD at the moment. And I have seen a lot of still, you know, aggressively priced stuff, and I've seen a lot of discounted stuff as well. So I think some people are still in denial, and I think it's just a matter of time before things play out.
Okay.